That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun hung low over Fort Bragg, casting long shadows across the dew-slicked parade ground. Sergeant Elena Vasquez stood at attention in her camouflage utilities, her boots planted firmly in the red clay soil. The air carried the sharp tang of gun oil and damp earth, mingling with the faint, earthy scent of her K9 partner Rex, who sat rigidly at her left heel. Rex was a Belgian Malinois, his black mask alert, ears pricked forward as if attuned to whispers in the wind. At 32, Elena had served 8 years in the Army's 75th Ranger Regiment, specializing in explosive detection with the military working dog program. Her unit, the 1st Battalion's K9 handlers, was the backbone of base security, silent sentinels against threats that eyes alone couldn't spot. "Handlers, forward!" barked Captain Harlan Reed, the unit commander, his voice cutting through the morning chill like a blade. A veteran of 2 tours in Afghanistan, Reed was all sharp angles and unyielding posture, his ribbons glinting under the rising light. The formation, 20 handlers and their dogs, moved as one, boots thudding in unison against the ground. Elena's gloved hand rested lightly on Rex's harness, feeling the subtle rise and fall of his breathing. They had trained together since Rex was a pup, imported from a Dutch breeder 2 years prior. Their bond was forged in the quiet hours. Dawn runs through the pine forests, the click of treats rewarding a perfect sit, the way Rex's nose would twitch at the faintest trace of C4 hidden in a mock cache. He wasn't just a tool, he was her extension, her conscience in fur and fangs. The exercise was standard, a simulated perimeter sweep around the mock village set up on the edge of the training area. Chain-link fences rattled in the breeze, and the distant hum of Black Hawk rotors echoed from the airfield. Elena and Rex led the second team, navigating the obstacle course of shipping containers and barbed wire. "Clear left," she murmured into her radio, her voice steady. Professional. Rex's tail didn't wag. It stayed low, focused. They cleared the first sector without incident, Rex signaling a false positive on a decoy IED with a sharp sit and paw lift, earning a quiet, good boy from Elena as she marked it for the sweep team. But as they approached the central compound, something shifted. Rex's gait changed, his head lowering, nostrils flaring. Elena felt the tension coil in his muscles through the leash. "Easy," she whispered, scanning the area. The handlers behind her fanned out, rifles at low ready, but Reed's voice crackled over the comms. "Vasquez, hold position. That's a no-go zone for your team." Elena paused, her brow furrowing. The orders had come down that morning during briefing. Rex's team was to skip the inner perimeter due to equipment calibration. It didn't sit right. The full sweep was protocol for any high-threat sim. "Sir, Rex is alerting," she reported, keeping her tone neutral. The dog sat abruptly, paw extended toward a shadowed alcove between 2 containers. The air here was thicker, laced with the metallic bite of something unnatural, perhaps the residue of last night's demo charges. But Rex wasn't reacting to residue. His stare was locked, unwavering. Elena knelt, her knee pressing into the soft dirt, and ran her gloved fingers along the ground. Nothing visible, but trust in Rex was absolute. He'd saved her squad in Kandahar once, detecting a pressure plate that would have ended 3 lives. Reed approached from the command post, his strides measured, flanked by Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the executive officer, a younger officer with a reputation for by-the-book rigidity. "Sergeant, I gave a direct order," Reed said, his eyes narrowing under the brim of his patrol cap. The other handlers slowed, forming a loose semicircle, their dogs shifting restlessly. The wind picked up, rustling the camo netting overhead, and Elena caught the faint static of radios tuning in from the observation tower. "Sir, with respect, Rex doesn't lie." Elena replied, standing slowly, her salute crisp. She met Reed's gaze, her own steady despite the knot in her stomach. Protocol demanded obedience, but so did the mission. Ignoring an alert could mean lives in the field, real ones, not sims. Hale stepped forward, his voice clipped. "This is a training evolution, Vasquez, not a combat op. Stand down, or you'll log an insubordinate mark." The words hung in the air, heavy as the humidity building before a storm. Elena hesitated, her hand tightening on Rex's leash. The dog whined softly, a rare sound, his eyes flicking between her and the alcove. Around them, the unit watched. Sergeant Ramirez from the first team, his German shepherd at heel, Corporal Lee, new to handlers, her face pale. This wasn't just about one alert, it was the chain fraying, a handler questioning the command that bound them all. "Permission to verify, sir?" Elena pressed, her voice even, but inside, doubt warred with duty. Reed's jaw tightened, the lines around his eyes deepening. He glanced at Hale, then back to her. "Negative. Report to the orderly room after debrief. You're off the field." The order landed like a spent casing on concrete. Elena clipped Rex's lead shorter and turned toward the edge of the grounds, the dog's reluctance pulling against her. Whispers rippled through the formation. What was that about? From one handler, a low growl from another's K9. As she walked away, the desert wind, the pine-scented breeze of Bragg, whipped at her back, carrying the echo of boots resuming the drill without her. By midday, the reassignment came via email. Sergeant Vasquez to administrative duties, effective immediately. Desk work, filing reports, updating logs, while the unit prepped for the upcoming certification. Elena sat in the handler's bay, brushing Rex's coat with mechanical strokes, the soft bristles whispering against his fur. He leaned into her, sensing the unrest. "What did they miss, boy?" she murmured, her fingers tracing the scar on his muzzle from a training mishap. The alcove's alert gnawed at her. Intel briefings had hinted at anomalous activity on base lately, unverified reports of unauthorized access. But orders were orders, and defiance started small. That afternoon, as she sorted paperwork in the dim-lit office, the radio on the wall crackled with base-wide chatter, routine until it wasn't. An intercepted call from off-base, scrambled, urgent, mentioned a package near the training grounds. Elena's pulse quickened. Rex, lounging under her desk, lifted his head, ears perked. She stared at the console, the pieces aligning in her mind. They had dismissed her instinct, Rex's instinct, for the sake of schedule. But what if the alert wasn't a false positive? What if obedience had blinded them to a real threat? The door swung open, and Hale entered, his expression unreadable. "Vasquez, you're confined to quarters pending review. Don't discuss this." She nodded, saluting sharply, but as he left, the weight of the decision settled. Loyalty to Rex, to the truth, pulled harder than any chain of command. In the quiet of the office, with the hum of fluorescent lights overhead, Elena knew this was only the beginning. The system demanded compliance, but conscience whispered otherwise, and Rex's unwavering gaze seemed to agree. Eleanor stared at the locked door of her quarters, the metallic click echoing in the narrow hallway, like a final punctuation on her day. The barracks at Fort Bragg were a labyrinth of concrete and steel, each room a Spartan cube furnished with a bunk, a footlocker, and the faint scent of polished boots and machine oil. Rex paced the linoleum floor, his nails clicking softly, his dark eyes fixed on her with that patient intensity only a working dog could muster. She sank onto the edge of the bed, unclipping her utility belt and laying it aside with deliberate care. The weight of the reassignment pressed on her like the humid North Carolina air seeping through the vents. Desk duty, a sidelining for handlers who questioned too much. Outside, the afternoon sun filtered through the blinds in slatted patterns, casting stripes across Rex's coat as he settled at her feet. Elena reached down, scratching behind his ears, feeling the warmth of his fur against her calloused fingers. "They think it's over, huh?" she said quietly, more to herself than to him. Rex tilted his head, a low huff escaping his muzzle, as if understanding the injustice in her tone. 8 years in, she'd seen handlers burn out from less, pushed to admin roles after a single misstep. Their bonds with their dogs fraying in the monotony of paperwork, but this felt different. The alcove alert replayed in her mind, Rex's unerring sit, the subtle shift in the air that only he had caught. She pulled her laptop from the locker, the screen flickering to life with the hum of its fan. Base policy forbade discussing ongoing reviews, but curiosity gnawed at her. Hale's order was clear: confined to quarters, no contact, but the intercepted call from earlier lingered like radio static in her thoughts. It had been brief, garbled through the signal's intelligence feed, a voice mentioning the package and coordinates that matched the training grounds. Elena's training kicked in. She cross-referenced it mentally against the morning's briefing. Anomalous activity, unauthorized drone sightings, perimeter breaches, logged but dismissed as glitches. Reed's decision to reroute her team suddenly seemed less like calibration and more like avoidance. A knock rattled the door, sharp and official. Elena stood, smoothing her uniform, and opened it to find Sergeant Ramirez, her squadmate from the first team, standing there with a folder under his arm. His German shepherd, Kira, waited in the hall, sitting precisely as trained. Ramirez's face was etched with the day's fatigue, his eyes darting past her into the room. "Vasquez," he said, voice low. "Captain sent this. Review materials for tomorrow's board." He handed over the folder, thick with incident reports and training logs, but his gaze lingered. "Heard about the alert. Rex pull anything solid?" Elena took the folder, her fingers brushing the crisp edges. Protocol demanded she report only through channels, but Ramirez was solid. 3 tours, no nonsense. "He alerted clean," she replied evenly, keeping her tone neutral. But orders were orders. Rex rose, sniffing at Ramirez's boots, and Kira responded with a soft whine, tails touching briefly in canine greeting. The moment stretched, the hallway's fluorescent buzz underscoring the unspoken tension. Handlers talked in code. They knew the stakes. A false alert could tank certifications, but ignoring a true one, that was blood on the ledger. Ramirez nodded, glancing over his shoulder. Words spreading. Hale's pushing for a quick slap, insubordination, end of story. But some of the team, they're asking questions. He paused, his hand resting on Kira's head. "That alcove? After you pulled off, we swept it anyway. Nothing. But the dog's nose doesn't glitch." Elena's jaw tightened. She'd expected as much. Rex had never false alerted in Sims, not once in 500 drills. "Appreciate the heads up," she said, saluting crisply. Ramirez returned it, a fraction longer than regulation, before turning away with Kira at heel. The door clicked shut, leaving the room heavier with isolation. As evening fell, the base came alive with routine. The distant bark of commands from the motor pool, the rumble of Humvees on patrol routes, the sharp scent of MREs heating in the chow hall, wafting through open windows. Elena pored over the folder by the desk lamp's glow, her notes meticulous. Timestamps, wind direction, Rex's behavioral cues. The moral pull tugged harder now. Obedience had sidelined her, but silence might bury whatever Rex had sensed. She thought of Kandahar, the pressure plate's faint chemical trace that Rex had flagged amid chaos, saving her fire team. Duty wasn't just following Reed, it was protecting the unit from unseen threats, even if it meant defying the chain. Rex stirred, alerting to a vibration in her pocket, her secure phone buzzing with a restricted message. She pulled it out, screen illuminating her face in blue light. It was from the SIGINT office, forwarded inadvertently, confirmation on the intercepted call. The package wasn't metaphorical. A suspected cache of unauthorized explosives linked to a civilian contractor with base access. Coordinates pinpointed the alcove. Elena's breath caught, the room's air suddenly thick. They had been right there. Reed's reroute had skirted it deliberately. Or was it oversight born of pressure, upcoming inspections, budget cuts forcing shortcuts? She stood, pacing the small space, Rex mirroring her steps with quiet precision. Reporting this would escalate, bypassing Hale straight to the Inspector General. But confinement meant no access, no proof beyond her word and Rex's instinct. The dilemma coiled tighter. Loyalty to command versus the lives potentially at risk. A knock came again, this time heavier. Through the peephole she saw Hale, flanked by military police, their arms crossed, expressions stone. "Vasquez, open up!" Hale called, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Elena hesitated, hand on the knob, Rex growling low at her side, a sound reserved for true threats. She opened the door, saluting. "Sir, you're to report to the Provost Marshal's office immediately," Hale said, eyes scanning the room as if searching for contraband. "New developments, and leave the dog here. Kennel detail will handle him." The order hit like a gut punch. Separating a handler from their K9 was protocol only in extreme cases, disciplinary actions, medical evals. Rex pressed against her leg, his body tense, fur bristling. Elena knelt briefly, whispering, "Stay," her hand lingering on his collar. The bond strained in that moment, a silent promise amid the fracturing trust. As they escorted her down the corridor, boots echoing on the polished floor, Elena's mind raced. The intercepted call validated Rex's alert, but admitting she'd pieced it together could brand her a rule breaker. Hale walked beside her, silent, the MPs a step behind. Outside, the night air cooled, carrying the pine resin from the surrounding woods and the faint whine of dogs in the kennels. Fort Bragg's lights dotted the horizon like stars, a reminder of the vast machine she served. Yet in the quiet march, conscience sharpened, the system protected itself first. But handlers like her stood between order and oblivion. Rex's whine echoed in her memory, pulling her toward truth, even as the chain of command tightened its grip. The reckoning was coming, public and unyielding, and she would face it with the discipline that had defined her service. The Provost Marshal's office was a squat, windowless bunker buried in the administrative heart of Fort Bragg, its walls paneled in scuffed oak and lit by harsh overhead fluorescents that hummed like distant generators. Elena marched in under escort, her boots striking the linoleum with measured precision, the two MPs flanking her like shadows. The air inside carried the stale bite of coffee grounds and printer ink, undercut by the faint, acrid tang of stress sweat from countless interrogations. Lieutenant Hale led the way, his posture rigid, but Elena caught the flicker in his eyes, a mix of duty and unease, as he nodded to the duty officer behind the desk. "Sergeant Vasquez, reporting as ordered," she said, saluting sharply. The provost, Major Ellis, a wiry woman in her 40s with a salt and pepper bun and a chest full of commendations, looked up from her tablet. Her office smelled of polished brass and the subtle floral note of her soap, a rare human touch in the sterility. "At ease, Sergeant. Take a seat." Elena complied, perching on the edge of the metal chair, her hands folded in her lap. Rex's absence gnawed at her like an open wound. Without him, the room felt unbalanced, her senses dulled without his quiet vigilance. Ellis leaned back, her fingers steepled. "We've got a situation. That intercepted call you might have overheard. It's escalated. SIGINT confirmed a potential breach, unauthorized explosives on base property tied to a contractor with clearance." The words landed with clinical weight, no drama, just facts. Elena's pulse steadied, validation but laced with complication. "Sir, Rex alerted to that exact location this morning. If we'd swept it, Hale cut in from his spot by the door, voice clipped. Sergeant, your actions this morning bypassed direct orders. That's the focus here, not hypotheticals. Ellis raised a hand, silencing him. Her gaze pinned Elena, assessing. Captain Reed's reroute was per standing protocol, equipment checks to avoid false positives during cert prep. But your dog's alert. It's on record now. We're pulling the full sweep team for re-interrogation. You'll be questioned under oath tomorrow. The door swung open without a knock, admitting Captain Reed himself, his uniform impeccable despite the late hour. Flanked by a JAG officer, a bespectacled captain named Torres, Reed's face was a mask of controlled authority. The room tightened, the air growing thicker with the scent of impending scrutiny. "Major," Reed greeted, saluting. "I've been briefed. Vasquez, your insubordination risks the unit's certification. Handlers don't freelance." Elena met his eyes, her voice level. "Sir, with respect, Rex's training is 98% accurate on live sense. Dismissing it without verification—" "Enough," Ellis interjected. "This isn't a debate. The board assembles at 0800. Sergeant, you're remanded to base restriction. No contact with your team, no access to kennels." The order stung deeper than desk duty. Isolation from Rex was psychological warfare, designed to break the bond that defined her role. As the MPs moved to cuff her wrists loosely, for transport only, Elena's mind raced. The intercepted call proved her right, but proving intent in Reed's decision. That required evidence, not instinct. They led her to a holding room down the hall, a bare space with a single table, 2 chairs, and a one-way mirror reflecting her taut expression. The MPs uncuffed her and posted outside, their boots scraping faintly as they settled. Alone, Eleanor sat, the chair's cold metal seeping through her uniform. The clock on the wall ticked methodically, each second amplifying the hum of the ventilation system like the breath of the base itself. She replayed the morning, the pine-scented breeze, Rex's paw lifting toward the alcove, Reed's curt dismissal. Was it negligence or something deliberate? Contractors had been under scrutiny, rumors of skimped security checks to cut costs, but accusing command without proof was career suicide. Hours blurred into the small hours, the room's single bulb casting long shadows. A tray arrived via slot, black coffee, bitter and cooling fast, and a field ration of crackers. Eleanor ate mechanically, her thoughts drifting to Rex in the kennels, pacing his run, nose to the gate, waiting for her whistle. Their bond wasn't sentiment, it was operational necessity, forged in the quiet repetition of commands. Sit, search, out. Handlers lived by it, died by it if severed too long. Separation bred doubt, and doubt in the field was fatal. At 0400, the door opened again. This time, it was Sergeant Ramirez, cleared for a supervised visit by Ellis's discretion. He carried a notepad, his face drawn under the harsh light. Kira wasn't with him, kennel lockdown for all non-essential dogs. "Vasquez," he said, sliding into the opposite chair. The MPs watched from the threshold, silent sentinels. "Board's stacking against you. Hale's filing the report. Willful disobedience, potential compromise of training integrity." Elena nodded, keeping her expression neutral. "And the sweep. Clean on surface, but forensics pulled traces, residual C4, old but active, matches the contractor's manifest discrepancies." Ramirez leaned in, voice dropping to a murmur. "Word from the tower. Reed knew about the intel glitch that morning. SIGINT flagged it hours before drill. He rerouted to buy time, not risk cert failure." The revelation hit like a suppressed round. Quiet, but piercing. Reed hadn't ignored Rex. He'd preempted the alert to contain fallout. Loyalty to the unit's metrics over potential threat. Elena's hands clenched under the table, nails biting into palms. Proof. Logs, but accessing them means going over hail. Jag's involved now. Torres is digging. Ramirez glanced at the mirror, then back. Team's fracturing. Lee's vouching for you. Says Rex's track record saved her sim last month. But if the board rules insubordination, you're out. Reassigned permanent. Dog 2. The weight settled, heavy as a full ruck. Elena thought of the ripple, one handler sidelined, trust eroded across the program. K9 units thrived on unity, the silent pact between human and K9 mirroring the chain above. Defiance here wasn't rebellion. It was safeguarding that pact. Tell the team. Hold the line, she said softly. Ramirez saluted subtly, rising as the MPs stirred. Dawn crept in through a high vent, grey light filtering like smoke. The public reckoning loomed. The board would convene in the base theatre, witnesses from the unit, perhaps media if it leaked. Fort Bragg's press corps sniffed out scandals like wrecks on a trail. Elena stood as they uncuffed her for transport, the corridor's cool air brushing her skin. Outside, the first roosters crowed from the edge of post, mingling with the low rumble of waking engines. The base stirred, oblivious yet, but whispers travelled fast in ranks. In the theatre's antechamber, handlers gathered under guard, Ramirez, Lee, others, their dogs absent, leashes coiled empty at hips. Eyes met hers, solidarity in silence, a shared breath before the storm. Reed and Hale entered last, uniforms starched, faces set. The doors opened to the assembly hall, rows of chairs filled with officers, the air thick with polished leather and anticipation. Eleanor took her place at the front table, the wood smooth under her fingers. Ellis called order, her gavel sharp. "Vasquez, state your piece," she directed. Elena rose, voice steady, the room's hush amplifying each word. "Ma'am, Rex alerted to a verified threat. Obeying orders saved face, but ignoring him risked lives. Duty demands both, chain and conscience." Murmurs rippled. Ramirez nodded faintly. Reed's jaw worked, but Torres scribbled notes. The intercepted call's transcript projected on screen, coordinates glowing like accusation. The testimony unfolded, handlers recounting the drill, the wind's shift, Rex's precision. Lee spoke first, her voice trembling slightly but clear. "Sergeant Vasquez trained us to trust the dog over doubt. That morning we should have." Hale countered with protocol citations, but cracks showed, his emphasis on efficiency ringing hollow against the forensic slide, explosive residue confirmed. As the board deliberated, the theatre's high ceilings echoed with tension, sunlight slanting through blinds to catch metal flashes. Elena sat, the moral test crystallizing. Her stand exposed the system's blind spots, forcing scrutiny on Reed's call. Consequences loomed. Demotion. Transfer. But in the quiet wait, integrity felt like armor, unyielding. Rex's whine from memory steadied her. Loyalty wasn't blind obedience, but the courage to question when the pack was at risk. The gavel fell at noon, Ellis's verdict measured. Investigation expands. Vasquez reinstated pending review. All teams, full recert. Relief washed subtle. Nods exchanged. But as Elena exited, Reed's gaze lingered, a silent acknowledgement, the chain bending toward reform. The base's rhythm resumed, helicopters thumping overhead, but the air hummed with change, one handler's defiance rippling outward. "Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach." The afternoon sun beat down on the K9 kennels at Fort Bragg, turning the chain-link runs into shimmering grids of heat haze. Elena Vasquez approached the gate with measured steps, her boots crunching on the gravel path, the familiar scent of wet fur and pine shavings cutting through the humidity. It had been 36 hours since the board's interim ruling, reinstated, but under a cloud of ongoing probe, and the first order of business was reclaiming her partner. Rex's run was at the end, his form visible through the mesh. Head high, ears forward, a low whine escaping as he caught her scent on the breeze. The kennel master, a grizzled staff sergeant named Patel, unlocked the gate with a nod. "He's been solid, Vasquez. No incidents. But he's been pacing. Missed your whistle." Elena knelt as Rex bounded forward, his harness jangling softly, muzzle pressing into her gloved hand. She clipped the lead, feeling the taut line of his body relax against her leg, the bond snapping back like a well-oiled mechanism. "Good boy," she murmured, her fingers tracing the edge of his collar, the leather warm from the sun. Separation had been a calculated strain, but Rex's eyes held no grudge, only the quiet readiness that defined their work. Back in the handler's bay, the unit moved with subdued efficiency, leashes coiling, water bowls rinsing under the faucet's steady drip. Sergeant Ramirez caught her eye from across the room, his German shepherd Kira lapping at a dish nearby. "Welcome back," he said, voice low amid the clatter of gear. No fanfare, just the subtle tilt of his head, a handler's acknowledgement. Corporal Lee hovered at a workbench, polishing a set of boot tags, her glance lingering longer than usual. The board's echoes hung in the air, testimonies that had peeled back layers of protocol, exposing the residue traces in the alcove as more than oversight. Elena settled Rex at her station, running a routine check, paws inspected, coat brushed with firm strokes that released the faint, musky scent of confinement. The bay's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting steady pools on the concrete floor, while radios crackled with perimeter updates from the watch. Her reinstatement came with strings, restricted duties, no field ops, until Jag cleared the contractor angle. But the probe's momentum pulled her in. Major Ellis had assigned her to assist forensics, logging Rex's alert data against the SIGINT logs. It was admin, wrapped in purpose, a bridge between desk and dirt. By 1600, she reported to the forensics lab, a low-slung building on the base's edge, its windows screened against the relentless sun. The air inside was cooler, laced with the chemical tang of solvents and the hum of spectrometers analyzing trace samples. Specialist Nguyen, a slight tech with wire-rimmed glasses, greeted her at the door. "Sergeant, we've got the prelims on that C4 residue. Matches commercial grade. Contractor's manifest shows shortages, unreported." He led her to a workstation. Screens glowing with molecular readouts, the alcove soil sample magnified in stark detail. Elena leaned in, her shoulder brushing the cool edge of the bench. Rex flagged it at 0745. Wind was southwest, 5 knots, carried the scent clean. Nguyen nodded, pulling up the time-stamped video from the drill cams, her team approaching. Rex's sit abrupt and precise amid the shipping container's shadows. "Your log aligns, but Reed's reroute order came at 0700, preempted the sector based on a glitch report. SIGINT confirms the call intercept at 0650. The pieces slotted together, the moral fracture widening. Command's efficiency clashing with the dog's unerring truth. As she cross-referenced entries, the door opened to admit Captain Reed, his presence filling the space like a shift in pressure. Hale trailed him, tablet in hand, the JAG officer Torres a step behind. The lab's sterile quiet amplified their bootsteps on the tile. "Vasquez," Reed said, his tone even, eyes flicking to the screen. "Progress?" No apology in his voice, just the disciplined pivot to facts. Elena straightened, saluting. "Sir, residue confirms active explosive. Rex's alert was valid. Potential breach contained by delay." Reed's jaw tightened fractionally, the lines of his face etched deeper under the lab's white light. "The probe's expanding to contractor oversight. My decision was to protect cert timelines. Inspections next week. Risk assessment, not evasion." Hale shifted, adding, "But protocol requires full alerts logged pre-reroute. Oversight on my end." Torres jotted notes, his pen scratching softly, the room's ventilation whispering like held breath. Elena held her ground, voice steady. Understood, sirs. But in the field, delays cost. Rex doesn't assess timelines, he detects threats. The exchange ended with orders. Elena to brief the full unit on alert protocols at evening formation, a subtle reform seeded in her stand. As they filed out, Reed paused at the door, his back to her. Your dog's record speaks. Keep it that way. It wasn't praise, but concession, the chain bending under scrutiny. Outside, the sun dipped lower, painting the lab's windows in orange. The distant thump of rotor blades, signaling shift change. Evening formation assembled on the parade ground, the handlers' ranks crisp under floodlights that cut the gathering dusk. Rex sat at Elena's heel, his coat gleaming from the brush, the pack's other K9s mirroring the posture in silent symmetry. Captain Reed took the podium, his silhouette sharp against the horizon, the air carrying the cool edge of nightfall and the faint rustle of pine needles. Unit, stand by for brief. Today's focus, integrating K9 alerts with command flow. Elena stepped forward as directed, her voice projecting clear over the formation. Protocol update, all alerts, verified or not, trigger immediate halt and secondary sweep. Dog's nose is primary, chain confirms. She demonstrated with Rex a simple command, search. He moved forward on lead, nose low, pausing at a planted decoy under the bleachers, sitting sharp. The handlers watched, Ramirez nodding approval, Lee scribbling notes. No drama in the demo, just the quiet precision of trust rebuilt. Whispers from the board had rippled outward. Contractors under audit. Reed's report amended to include the SIGINT lag. Hale pulled her aside post-brief, his expression less rigid. Your input on the logs. It's tightening the gaps. XO's office is drafting new standing orders. Elena saluted. The gesture exchanged with mutual respect. The unit dispersed to kennels, leashes trailing like threads of loyalty, the ground's dew slicking boots. In the quiet of the bay afterward, Elena kennelled Rex with a final pat, his eyes following her to the door. The day's wait settled, reinstatement not as victory, but pivot. Her defiance had forced the light on blind spots, contractor vetting, alert prioritization, sparking quiet reforms that would echo through certifications. Ramirez joined her at the coffee urn, pouring 2 mugs. The steam rising in the dim light. Teams solid behind you. Lee's asking for joint drills, wants to shadow your cues. Elena sipped the bitter brew, the warmth grounding her. Good. Bonds hold when we train them right. Outside, the base hummed into night, patrols rolling out, radios static soft, the stars pricking through the Carolina sky. Her career hung in balance, JAG's full review pending, but integrity's cost was clarity, the system learning through her stand. Rex's soft huff from the run carried on the breeze, a reminder. Loyalty wasn't obedience alone, but the courage to safeguard the pack, one alert at a time. The probe deepened over the next week, forensics yielding more. The contractor's logs falsified. Shipments diverted for black market resale. Elena's testimony, sworn and detailed, wove Rex's alert into the narrative. Irrefutable proof that instinct had pierced the veil. Reed faced a formal review, his command intact but shadowed by mandatory retraining on SIGINT integration. Hale, ever the protocol man, volunteered for the same, pulling the unit into mock scenarios that blended dogwork with real-time intel feeds. Mentorship emerged organically. Eleanor paired with Lee for dawn runs, Rex leading Kira through scent trails in the foggy woods, the handler's breaths syncing with the dog's steady trots. Watch his flank, Elena instructed, voice low as they navigated a stream crossing, water splashing cold against calves. He'll signal before you see it, Lee nodded, her confidence building in the repetition, the bond between handler and K9 mirroring the growing trust across ranks. By week's end, the intercepted call's source traced to a rogue subcontractor, arrested off base, charges pending. The base command issued a memo. Enhanced K9 protocols, alerts elevated in decision trees. Elena received quiet commendation in her file, no fanfare, just the weight of precedent. As she walked Rex under the floodlit pines, the night's chill nipping at edges, she felt the ripple. One act of conscience reforming the rigid lines, loyalty's legacy etched in discipline and silence. The chain held stronger now, tested and true. The days following the board's ruling blurred into a rhythm of restrained activity, the kind that Fort Bragg imposed on units under scrutiny, like a held breath before the next patrol. Elena Vasquez moved through the handler's bay with purposeful quiet, her utilities starched but her mind still mapping the probe's unfolding threads. Rex trotted at her heel during limited drills, his paws padding softly on the dew-kissed grass of the auxiliary field, the morning mist clinging to his coat like a veil. The separation's toll showed in subtle ways, a slight hesitation in his initial sit, the way his ears flicked toward her voice before responding. But the bond mended in the repetition, commands issued low and firm, treats doled out with the click of her tongue, the faint salt of his fur under her gloved fingers, grounding her. Major Ellis had expanded Elena's role, liaison between the K-9 unit and the JAG investigation, logging every alert from the past quarter against SIGINT patterns. It was desk-adjacent work, but laced with field access. Interviews with contractors, site revisits with Rex in tow. The alcove from that fateful morning stood cordoned off now, yellow tape fluttering in the breeze that carried the sharp resin of pine and the underlying earthiness of disturbed soil. Elena led Rex there mid-morning, the sun climbing to burn off the fog, casting harsh shadows across the shipping container's rusted edges. "Search!" she commanded, unclipping his lead. He moved methodically, nose grazing the ground, pausing at the same shadowed spot with a paw lift that twisted her gut, confirmation of what forensics had already scraped away. Specialist Nguyen met them at the perimeter, his tablet glowing under the glare, the air around him humming with the low whir of a portable analyzer. Residue levels match the initial sample, degraded but volatile. Contractor's crew accessed this sector 2 nights prior, per gate logs. Elena nodded, jotting notes in her field book, the pencil's scratch syncing with Rex's steady breathing. Nguyen's voice dropped as he glanced toward the observation post. JAG's pulling manifests, shortages align with the intercepted call, diverted shipments to off-base buyers. Reed's briefings omitted the flags to keep certs on track. The moral weight pressed anew. Reed's choice, born of command pressures, had skirted danger for the sake of metrics. Elena felt it in the quiet moments, like now, as Rex circled back to her side, his muzzle warm against her knee. Loyalty demanded she report it straight, no softening for rank, but conscience urged mercy for a system strained by budgets and oversight gaps. "Any ties to the subcontractor?" she asked, her tone professional, eyes scanning the tape's flutter. Nguyen tapped his screen. Preliminary, the call's voice print matches a foreman with expired clearance, arrest warrants drafting. Back at the bay by noon, the unit's routine hummed. Handlers oiling harnesses, the metallic tang mingling with the wet dog scent after a water break. Sergeant Ramirez approached her station, Kira at his side, the German shepherd's tail giving a single controlled wag. "Ellis wants you at the afternoon brief, full command staff. Torres is presenting the timeline." His eyes held the unspoken. This was the probe's pivot, where whispers became writ. Elena clipped Rex's water bowl shut, the ceramic clink echoing her resolve. Rex's data's compiled, alerts spiked 3 times in restricted zones last month, dismissed as calibration errors. The briefing room in the operations center was a stark contrast to the field, cool, air-conditioned, walls lined with digital maps flickering blue. Elena entered last, Rex's nails clicking on the tile until she commanded down. his body folding neatly beside her chair. The room smelled of fresh printouts and the faint ozone of projectors, officers seated in rows. Reed at the head table, his posture unyielding. Hale to his right, tablet poised. Ellis and Torres flanking a central screen. The door sealed with a soft hiss, sealing in the tension like a vacuum. Torres began, his voice measured, the projector casting the intercepted call's transcript in stark white. Timestamps, coordinates, the garbled package reference glowing. Sergeant Vasquez's alert at 0745 intersected this intel, received at 650. Reroute order issued 700, protocol compliant but incomplete disclosure. Murmurs stirred. A colonel from base security shifted, his ribbons catching the light. Reed leaned forward, elbows on the table. Decision protected operational tempo. Full sweep post-drill confirmed, no immediate threat. Elena felt Hale's gaze on her, expectant. Ellis nodded her way. "Sergeant, your input." She stood, hand resting lightly on Rex's head for steadiness, the dog's warmth a silent anchor. "Sirs, Rex's detection was 98% corroborated by forensics. 3 prior alerts in similar zones, logged but not escalated, point to systemic gaps in contractor vetting. Duty requires verification over velocity." Her words hung, simple and direct. No accusation, just the procedural truth. The room absorbed it. Reed's jaw set, but he didn't interrupt. Torres annotated, the pen's tap underscoring agreement. Ellis steered the discussion forward. Recommendations. Mandatory K9 integration in all SIGINT briefs. Contractor audits quarterly, with handler oversight. Nods rippled. Hale volunteering his team for the pilot. Ramirez's name floated for cross-training. The session closed with assignments, Elena to lead a protocol rewrite, her reinstatement formalized in writing. As they filed out, the corridor's fluorescent hum resumed, boots echoing in sync. Reed caught her arm briefly outside, his grip firm but not aggressive. "Your stand. It's reshaping us. But watch the line. Conscience can't override all." Elena saluted, the gesture crisp. "Understood, sir. Rex keeps me on it." Outside, the afternoon heat pressed, the sun slanting through oaks to dapple the path. Rex pulled toward the kennels, sensing downtime, but she detoured to the motor pool, where Lee waited with a mock cache setup. Joint drill, per the new orders. The corporal's face lit subtly as they approached. Her own dog, a young Labrador named Scout, sitting alert. "Ready to run it?" Lee asked, voice steady now, the board's shadow fading in practice. They worked the course under the pines. Commands overlapping. "Search left," Elena called, Rex weaving through barrels, Scout mirroring with Lee's guidance. The air filled with the rustle of leaves and the dog's focused sniffs, scents layered. Decoy explosives faint against the loamy soil. A hit. Rex sat. Scout pawed seconds later. Elena praised them both. Treats exchanged in the quiet aftermath. The handler's nods sealing mentorship. "Your cues tightened that," Lee said, wiping sweat from her brow. "Board made me see. Trust the nose, not the clock." By dusk, the base settled into evening stand-to, patrols forming, radios crackling with check-ins, the distant whine of K9 transports. Elena kennelled Rex with a final circuit, pause, checked, ears stroked, the routine a balm against the day's scrutiny. In her quarters, the folder of drafts waited, protocol revisions, her handwriting neat amid the glow of a desk lamp. The probe's ripples extended. Contractor contracts under review base-wide, whispers of commendations for handlers who'd logged the overlooked alerts. Her defiance hadn't shattered the chain, it had reinforced it, conscience weaving through command like a dog's unerring trail. Ramirez stopped by as lights dimmed, 2 chairs pulled to the small table, coffee steaming black. "Jag's closing on the foreman tomorrow. Your logs sealed it." Elena sipped, the bitterness familiar. Team effort. Rex started it. He chuckled softly, rare in the Bay's discipline. "He's the real rank here, but you're the one who held the lead." The conversation turned to drills. Futures Lee's cert unit expansions, but beneath lay the legacy, integrity's quiet cost, yielding stronger safeguards, loyalty tested and tempered. Night fell fully, the window framing stars over the parade ground, the base's pulse steady. Elena lay awake briefly, Rex's imagined huff from the kennel echoing in her thoughts. The system learned slowly, but it learned. Through stands like hers, bonds unbroken. Tomorrow brought more, audits, trainings, the probe's final knots. But in the hush, moral courage felt earned, a medal worn in silence. The morning briefing in the operations center carried the weight of inevitability, the room's digital maps pulsing with updated threat overlays that cast a blue glow across the assembled faces. Elena Vasquez stood at the back with Rex at her heel, his harness adjusted snug against the cool tile floor, the faint scent of his coat mingling with the ozone hum of the projectors. Major Ellis presided from the front, her tablet propped open, while Captain Reed and Lieutenant Hale flanked the central table, their postures rigid under the fluorescent lights that buzzed like distant radio chatter. The probe had escalated overnight, Jag's warrant executed, the subcontractor foreman in custody, his phone yielding texts that corroborated the intercepted call's coordinates. The alcove's residue wasn't isolated. It traced to a pattern of skimmed materials across 3 bases, a quiet scandal threatening to break into public view. "Sergeant Vasquez," Ellis directed, her voice cutting through the low murmur of officers shifting in their seats. "Your liaison role, brief the integration findings." Elena stepped forward, saluting crisply, Rex moving in sync without command, his paws silent now on the mat she'd laid for him. The room smelled of fresh coffee from the side urn and the subtle polish of leather belts, a reminder of the discipline holding the tension at bay. She activated her own tablet, projecting the revised protocol slides, flowcharts linking K9 alerts to SIGINT feeds, mandatory halts for verification. "Ma'am, sirs, Rex's data from the past quarter shows 12 overlooked signals in restricted zones. Cross-referenced with contractor logs, 4 align with manifest gaps. New standing order. Handlers flag pre-reroute. Command confirms within 5 minutes. Murmurs rippled, approval from the security colonel, a subtle nod from Ramirez seated midway down. Reed's expression remained neutral, his fingers drumming once on the table's edge before stilling. "Implementation timeline," he asked, his tone procedural, eyes meeting hers without warmth or recrimination. Elena kept her response even. "Pilot next week, full rollout post-cert, includes joint drills with SIGINT teams, Rex and Kira leading the first run." Hale interjected, tablet glowing in his lap. "Resources allocated, but public exposure, press is sniffing. Base PAOs drafting a release on the arrest, no details on internal ops." The word public hung, amplifying the stakes. Fort Bragg's media relations had tightened since dawn. A local reporter from Fayetteville had queried about security lapses after the arrest hit wire services. Elena felt the shift, the reckoning spilling beyond chain walls, her stand now a thread in the institution's fabric. Ellis closed the brief with assignments, Elena to oversee the pilot, Reed to audit contractor protocols base-wide. As the room emptied, boots echoing down the corridor, Rex pressed against her leg, sensing the undercurrent. Outside, the Carolina sun climbed, heat rising from the asphalt paths, carrying the pine tang that masked the day's building pressure. By midday, the public facet unfolded in the base commander's conference room, a larger space with windows overlooking the parade ground where handlers drilled in the distance, their commands faint, dogs' barks punctuating the rhythm. Eleanor arrived under escort, Rex's lead clipped short. The MPs at the door a formality now, but a reminder of confinement's shadow. Inside, the air was cooler, conditioned against the humidity, scented with the sharp bite of dry erase markers from the whiteboard. Base Commander Colonel Harlan Graves sat at the head, flanked by PAO Major Lena Ortiz and Jags Torres, their uniforms impeccable, notepads open. Reporters, 2 from military outlets, 1 civilian, waited in the antechamber, cleared for a controlled statement. "Vasquez," Graves began, his voice gravelly from years of field commands, eyes assessing her like a terrain map. "Your testimony ties the K9 alert to the breach. PAO needs your angle. Keep it factual, no speculation." Elena nodded, settling into the chair, Rex down at her feet, his head resting on her boot. The moral test sharpened here. Her words would shape the narrative. Loyalty to truth over any lingering deference to Reed's misstep. Ortiz leaned in, her pen poised. Focus on protocol enhancement. The arrests the hook. Explosives diverted. Threat neutralized thanks to vigilance. The door opened to admit the press, notebooks and recorders at ready, the room's atmosphere thickening like pre-storm air. The lead reporter, a wiry woman from Army Times, fixed on Eleanor first. "Sergeant, reports say a dog's alert flagged the issue. How does that fit with command decisions?" Eleanor's response was measured, gaze steady. Standard training exercise. Rex detected a trace, verified later by forensics. Chain of command reviewed, protocols updated to integrate alerts faster. No blame, just the procedural arc. But the implication lingered. Instinct had bridged the gap where intel lagged. Questions flowed on the contractor's role, base security metrics, Ortiz steering with practiced redirects. Reed entered midway, called for context, his statement brief. Oversight identified and addressed, unit integrity intact. But Torres projected the timeline slide, 0652 intercept, 0700 reroute, 0745 alert. The reporters scribbled furiously, flashes popping softly as photos captured the tableau. Elena's hand on Rex's collar, the dog's ears perked amid the suits and stars. Graves wrapped it at 1300. The press ushered out with embeds on the reforms. K9 enhancements, a model for other posts. In the aftermath, the corridor buzzed with aides relaying to higher echelons, Pentagon eyes now, whispers of congressional briefings on contractor vetting. Elena walked Rex back to the bay, the sun's heat pressing through her blouse, gravel crunching underfoot. Ramirez met her at the entrance, Kira lounging nearby. Saw the feed. Clean work. Didn't throw Reed under. She unclipped Rex's lead, watching him bound to his run, tail low but steady. Not about that. About the fix. Deet. The unit gathered subtly, Lee joining, others pausing mid-task, their nods a quiet chorus of respect. Afternoon brought the pilot drill on the auxiliary range, a cordoned field edged by razor wire and mock structures, the air heavy with the scent of trampled grass and faint explosive simulants. Elena led the team, Rex and 3 other K9s, handlers paired with SIGINT techs in Humvees, radios linked live. "Formation search pattern Alpha," she called, voice projecting over the wind that rustled the camo netting. Rex moved first, nose to ground, the team fanning out, boots thudding in unison, leashes taut. A planted decoy in a debris pile. Rex sat sharp, paw up, the tech confirming via scanner seconds later. "Alert verified! Hold for sweep!" crackled the comms. The new protocol seamless. Hale observed from the ridge, binoculars to eyes, his feedback post-drill concise. Timeline cut by 3 minutes, scalable. Reed arrived as they wrapped, his presence noted but not disruptive. "Vasquez, run it again tomorrow. Include night ops." The concession was in the order itself, command yielding to the reform her integrity had sparked. As the sun dipped, painting the range in gold, Elena brushed Rex down in the bay, the bristles whispering against his fur slick with effort. The public light had exposed fractures, but the quiet work mended them. Mentorship with Lee extending to cross-unit shares, her Labrador Scout sinking cues under Elena's guidance. Evening fell with a base-wide memo. Commendations for the K9 program. Elena's name cited anonymously in the enhancements. In her quarters, the day's echoes settled, the press's questions, Rex's unerring sit, the chain's subtle shift. Ramirez dropped by, sharing a field report, probe closing, foreman pleading out, reforms rolling to other installations. "Your Stan's legacy," he said, saluting at the door. Alone, Elena reviewed the protocol draft by lamplight, the paper crisp under her fingers, the hum of the bass outside a steady pulse. Conscience had cost isolation, but yielded strength. Loyalty redefined, not as blind follow, but vigilant guard. Rex's distant huff from the kennel carried through the night, a bond unbroken, the system wiser for the test. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Elena Vasquez reach those who still believe in honor. The final layers of the investigation peeled back under the relentless scrutiny of JAG's forensic teams, their reports stacking like ammunition crates in the Provost Marshal's secure files. Elena Vasquez walked the perimeter of the training grounds at dawn, Rex at her heel. The cool mist from the Cape Fear River clinging to their uniforms like a damp shroud. The air carried the earthy promise of rain, mingling with the faint, lingering trace of chemical simulants from overnight drills. Her reinstatement had held through the probe's endgame, but the base's rhythm felt altered. Subtler checks at gates, handlers' radios tuned to dual channels for K9 and SIGINT crosstalk. The contractor scandal had rippled upward, prompting audits at installations from Bragg to Lewis. Elena's logs cited in classified briefs as the catalyst for procedural overhauls. In the handler's bay, the morning light slanted through high windows, illuminating rows of kennels where dogs shifted restlessly, their breaths sinking with the low hum of ventilation fans. Elena ran a grooming check on Rex, her brush gliding through his coat in steady arcs, releasing the subtle musk of exertion from yesterday's pilot run. Corporal Lee approached from her station, Scout's lead coiled in her hand, the young Labrador sitting precisely at her side. "Sergeant, the new protocol packet, Ellis signed off. You're leading the unit brief at 0900. Lee's voice held a newfound steadiness, the board's tension forged into quiet confidence. Elena nodded, clipping a fresh tag to Rex's collar, the metal cool against her fingers. "Include the alert flowcharts. Show how it syncs with the intercept feeds." The brief assembled in the operations annex, a modular building edged by sandbag revetments, its interior walls papered with threat maps that glowed under LED strips. Handlers filled the benches, 20 strong, dogs posted outside under watch, the air thick with the scent of oiled leather and fresh ink from distributed manuals. Captain Reed took the podium first, his silhouette sharp against the projected slides, voice carrying the clipped authority of command. "Unit, this is the standard now. K9 alerts trigger immediate SIGINT verify. No reroutes without dual sign-off." His eyes swept the room, lingering fractionally on Elena, a nod buried in the formality. The probe had cleared him of intent, pressure from higher on cert deadlines, but mandated his oversight course, a quiet recalibration. Eleanor followed, stepping to the front with Rex at loose lead, his paws silent on the scuffed linoleum. Demonstration, simulated intercept. She keyed the radio, a mock call crackling through speakers, garbled coordinates, the word package slicing the static. Rex responded before her command, head tilting, nostrils flaring as if scenting the invisible threat. "Alert!" she said evenly, and he sat, paw extended. The room watched, breaths held, as Ramirez mirrored with Kira, the dual signal underscoring the reform. "Chain confirms in real time," Elena continued, her tone procedural, no triumph. "Duty aligns instinct with order, saves the op." Nods rippled. Hale, from his seat, projected the updated decision tree, his annotations precise. The session closed with assignments, cross-unit drills. Elena paired with Sigint for the week. Her role expanded to program advisor. By midday, the public afterglow faded into routine, the press release absorbed into military channels without fanfare, no headlines, just internal memos praising enhanced vigilance. Elena led Rex to the mock village site, the shipping containers baking under the climbing sun, their metal surfaces radiating heat that warped the air. The alcove stood cleared now, tape removed, but forensics markers dotted the soil like forgotten casings. "Search," she commanded, unclipping him. Rex worked the ground methodically, nose low, the wind whispering through chain link with a faint rattle. No alert this time, clean, but the exercise reinforced the legacy. One dismissed signal had exposed a network, contractors blacklisted, shipments rerouted under stricter manifests. Sergeant Ramirez joined her at the edge, Kira loping ahead to greet Rex with a muffled huff, tails brushing in canine accord. "Jag wrapped it. Foreman's deal includes testimony on the skim. Your stands in the after-action. Handler integrity pivotal to threat mitigation." His words were matter-of-fact, delivered over the distant thump of a Black Hawk lifting off from the airfield. Elena wiped sweat from her brow, the salt stinging her eyes. Not about credit, about the gaps closing. They walked back in sync, boots crunching gravel, the conversation turning to mentorship. Ramirez volunteering for Lee's cert, Elena to shadow new handlers on alert protocols. The unit's fractures mended in these threads, loyalty woven tighter through shared drills and silent nods. Afternoon shifted to the kennel review board, a formal huddle in the vet clinic's annex, where fluorescent lights hummed over exam tables scarred by years of care. Major Ellis presided, flanked by the unit surgeon and a JAG rep, the air laced with antiseptic and the soft whines of dogs in holding. Elena presented Rex's health log. Vitals steady, separation stress minimal, bond integrity confirmed. "He's field ready," she stated, hand resting on his flank as the vet nodded approval. Ellis's gaze was appraising. "Your input shaped the reforms, Vasquez. Programs adopting it base-wide, K9 liaison standard." The commendation landed lightly, filed without ceremony, but its weight settled in the quiet. Her defiance had transformed sidelining into symbol, conscience elevating the handler's voice in the chain. As evening cooled the base, Eleanor walked Rex through the pine stands bordering post, the needles carpeting the path in a soft hush underfoot. Floodlights flickered on, casting long shadows that danced with fireflies, the river's murmur, a steady undertone. The probe's closure brought no parade, just a memo to files, Reed's command reaffirmed with caveats, Hale's rigidity softened by the pilot's success. Yet the ripple endured, whispers in chow lines of Vasquez's call, new recruits eyeing handlers with added respect. The K9 program's budget nudged upward for tech integrations. Elena paused at a clearing, Rex sitting alert beside her, his breath visible in the chill. The moral arc had bent the system, not broken it, proving integrity's cost yielded enduring strength. In the bay's dimming light as she settled Rex for the night, the door opened to admit Lee, folder in hand. "Protocol sign-off, your drafts." XO approved. The corporal's salute was crisp, eyes bright with the spark of growth. Elena returned it, the gesture lingering a beat. "Run it with Scout tomorrow. Trust the cues." Alone after, Elena reviewed her own file by desk lamp, the glow illuminating ribbons earned in silence. The reassignment's shadow had lifted, replaced by purpose, mentor, advisor, guardian of the bond that bridged human order and canine truth. Outside, the base exhaled into night, radios fading, dogs' breaths sinking in kennels, a machine refined, loyalty's legacy etched in every alert to come. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of they reassigned her to desk duty until the intercepted call revealed she was right all along. See you in the next one. In the hush of a dawn patrol, Rex's unerring nose became the chain's quiet compass, guiding the ranks toward a horizon where duty and conscience marched as one.